Picture this. You have a cohort of first-year Goldman Sachs analysts. We are talking about some of the absolute brightest, most capable minds of their generation.
Right.
And they are working up to 105 hours a week, sleeping exactly 5 hours a night, and just, pushing their biology to the absolute breaking point to secure massive compounding wealth.
And at the exact same time, we have a behavioral analysis of 3.1 million Americans showing that the psychological crush of time poverty,
Which is just having no time.
exactly, that chronic, suffocating feeling of having too much to do and not enough time to do it, that actually has a stronger negative effect on human happiness than being completely unemployed.
Welcome to the debate. Here is the central mystery we are unraveling today. Why are the most successful, highly compensated people in the world also statistically the most stressed? Is trading your finite biological time for compounding financial capital a highly rational survival mechanism in a precarious world?
Or is it a catastrophic error in judgment? Today we are exploring the ultimate global wealth-time dilemma. We are looking at two entirely different currencies of human well-being.
Do extreme labor and aggressive capital accumulation provide the ultimate security?
Or is time affluence, meaning total sovereignty over your own schedule, the actual currency of a well-lived life?
I'll be arguing from the pragmatic, systemic perspective. Because, maximizing wealth and leaning into a high-performance career culture isn't some modern sickness. I'm going to argue it is a highly rational, necessary strategy for structural security. And we will dig into the newly resolved data showing that for the vast majority of people, experienced happiness actually scales infinitely with income.
And I will be representing the human autonomy and mental health perspective. I'll be arguing that time sovereignty is the ultimate non-renewable driver of human happiness. We are going to explore how the modern pathology of extreme performance is biologically, psychologically, and socially destructive to the human animal.
So to understand why those Goldman analysts are doing this, we can't just look at psychology. We have to look at math. The pursuit of capital through extreme work is frequently criticized as some kind of toxic ambition.
Because it often is.
Well, if you consider the structural reality of the modern economy, it starts to look like a perfectly rational defense mechanism. We live in a macroeconomic environment defined by Thomas Piketty's famous equation. The rate of return on capital, R, is greater than the rate of economic growth.
R is greater than G.
Right. The return on wealth and assets consistently outpaces standard wage growth. What does that actually mean for the person listening to this on their morning commute? It means if you are relying solely on a standard salary, you are mathematically falling behind inflation and asset prices. You have to accumulate capital to survive, and to get that capital quickly, you have to trade your time.
But at what cost to the human nervous system? I mean, you are framing this as a clean, rational spreadsheet equation. Let's look at the biological cost of that trade. We brought up that Goldman Sachs internal survey earlier, the one put together by 13 first-year analysts.
Yeah, it was pretty revealing.
They weren't just investing their time in a vacuum. They were working 95 to 105 hours a week, going to bed at 3 a.m.
Investment banking is notoriously rigorous, yes, but it pays a premium for that rigor.
Rigorous is a very generous word for what happens to the body under those conditions. They reported severe mental health declines, extreme physical stress, and frequent workplace abuse. One analyst literally stated, "I've been through foster care, and this is arguably worse."
Wow.
Yeah. We cannot ignore the fatal outcomes of this culture. Look at Moritz Earhart, the 21-year-old Bank of America intern who died of a seizure in the shower after working 72 hours straight. Or Sarvastrast Gupta, the 22-year-old analyst who took his own life. The human body is not a machine that can be endlessly optimized for Piketty's equations. We have to look at the mechanisms of the Karasek model of occupational health.
Which deals with job strain, right?
Specifically, it deals with the lethal combination of high demand and low control. Think about it this way. A trauma surgeon has an incredibly high demand job, but they generally have a high degree of control over their operating room and their expertise.
Sure, they call the shots.
Exactly. but a corporate middle manager or a junior analyst has sky-high demands placed on them, with absolutely zero control over how or when the work is done. The Karasek model shows that this specific dynamic, high demand, low control, traps the human nervous system in a constant threat state. Cortisol never flushes out of your bloodstream.
It becomes chronic.
Right, it biologically damages the body, leading to chronic hypertension and severe cardiovascular disease. Is this high human capital or just human ammunition to be exhausted by the system?
I see why you think that. And I'm certainly not defending workplace abuse. Those fatal outcomes are absolute tragedies. But I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning as a rule, because you are treating burnout as if it is an exclusive tax on investment bankers making $500,000.
It's definitely concentrated there.
But let's look at the e-monitor data from the broader economy. Do you know who has the highest burnout rate in the modern workforce? Healthcare workers at 76%. Education is at 73%. Tech workers and customer support are right there with them.
Because the entire system is pushing everyone beyond their biological limits?
Exactly. It's systemic. Precarity and burnout are the default state of the modern economy, whether you are a barista, a teacher, or a software engineer. The system is going to extract your time and potentially burn you out regardless of your profession.
So you might as well get rich doing it?
Yes, the difference is the leverage. If you are going to be exhausted anyway, it is entirely rational to position yourself where you can extract the maximum financial reward from that extraction. Let's go back to the scarce is good heuristic. In a highly specialized global market, working constantly communicates to the market that your skills are in extreme demand. You sacrifice time in your 20s and 30s to build an impenetrable financial shield for your 40s and 50s.
Wait, look at the assumption you are making there, though. You are assuming the financial shield actually protects your well-being, but if your nervous system collapses in your 30s, that shield is completely useless.
But the data shows the shield does work. For a decade, the behavioral science community was totally divided over whether money actually buys happiness. We had the old Daniel Kahneman data suggesting happiness plateaued at around, $75,000?
Right, the famous plateau.
But we need to understand how that study was flawed. Kahneman relied on people remembering how happy they were last week, which is a highly inaccurate way to measure daily well-being. Matthew Killingsworth resolved this by building an app that pinged people randomly during the day asking, "How do you feel right now?"
Experience sampling.
Exactly. This real-time continuous experience sampling proved that the old plateau was a total myth. For 80% of the population, experienced day-to-day well-being rises steadily with the log of income with absolutely no upper bound.
But here is the catch. Because they are buying their way out of misery, not necessarily buying joy.
Yes, and that is a profound mechanism. Wealth acts as a shock absorber for life's micro-stressors. If your car breaks down and you have $10,000 in checking, it is an annoyance. If your car breaks down and you have $10, it is a catastrophic life event that spikes your cortisol for a month.
That's fair.
The Killingsworth data shows that for the happiest 15% of the population, the positive effects of money actually accelerate at higher income levels. Furthermore, look at the Columbia Business School research. Busyness and a total lack of leisure time have actually become the ultimate modern status symbol. We flex our lack of time. Being overworked signals competence. It says, I am a rare gemstone in the knowledge economy.
Treadmill.
You're talking about the psychological set point.
Right, hedonic adaptation. Brickman and Campbell mapped this out years ago, and it explains exactly why the Goldman analysts never actually leave the system. The human brain is essentially a difference engine. It doesn't measure absolute wealth. It only registers changes from your baseline.
Right, so you adjust.
Exactly. So you give up your youth, your health, and your relationships for a massive salary. You think, once I hit $300,000 a year, I'll be happy. But what happens? Lifestyle creep. Your expectations rise in exact tandem with your income. The luxury car becomes the new baseline. The expensive mortgage becomes the new baseline.
Sure, but
So a scratch on that luxury car suddenly causes the exact same biological stress response that a late rent check used to cause. You don't step off the treadmill. You just have to run faster to maintain the exact same level of psychological comfort.
that implies people are just blindly consuming without strategy, though.
Wealth can be deployed intentionally.
Let me finish the thought on intentional deployment, because Ashley Willen's research out of Harvard Business School provides the exact counter-strategy to the hedonic treadmill, and it doesn't require millions of dollars. She found that you don't need a Wall Street salary to buy happiness, trading as little as $40 of discretionary income to save time.
$40?
Yeah, like paying someone to mow the lawn or do a dreaded chore. It pays off significantly for your daily happiness. Why? Because it reduces time poverty. It allows you to spend 30 minutes engaging in a meaningful restorative activity. That is how you use resources to build well-being. You buy back small pockets of sovereignty, rather than hoarding millions of dollars while your cardiovascular system fails.
That is a fascinating psychological mechanism, but have you considered the glaring systemic privilege required to even execute that strategy?
How so?
Let's interrogate this. Saying a $40 time buy solves burnout is like telling someone with a broken leg to just take an Advil. The Advil costs money and it doesn't fix the bone. Buying back time with $40 only works if you've ground hard enough to have the discretionary income in the first place. You can't outsource your chores if you are broke.
Well, obviously you need a baseline.
You can't pay for grocery delivery if you are struggling to make rent. The micro-autonomy you are advocating for is entirely dependent on the macro capital accumulation I am advocating for. You have to participate in the high-performance culture to afford the $40.
I completely disagree that surrendering to corporate hyperwork is the only way to generate discretionary income. And frankly, the corporate promise that wealth will eventually buy you leisure is a documented illusion. I mean, if you are listening to this right now, think about how often you check your work email on a Sunday. We have to look at the autonomy paradox and the concept of time confetti.
Explain the mechanics of time confetti.
Well, technology and corporate culture claim they are freeing us. They give you a smartphone and say, great news, you can work from the beach, you have total autonomy. But in reality, they just fragmented our leisure time into stressful, tiny pieces of confetti.
Oh, I see.
Imagine trying to get a full night's sleep, but someone flicks the bedroom lights on for 2 seconds every 20 minutes. You are technically in bed for 8 hours, but you get zero restorative rest. That is what a single Slack notification does to your Saturday.
It breaks the cycle.
Neurologically, it takes an average of 19 minutes for the human brain to cognitively recover and downregulate from a single digital work interruption. So even when you are technically off the clock, sitting at dinner with your family, you are psychologically tethered to the machine. The corporate system doesn't give you your time back just because you got rich. It expects you to be more available.
Okay, I can see that technology has definitely blurred the boundaries of leisure. But if you reject the high-earning corporate path, how does one actually achieve this time sovereignty without the capital to protect themselves?
By changing the mathematical equation of what you actually need to survive. This is where we have to look at the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. This is the ultimate engineered escape hatch from the hedonic treadmill. It fundamentally rejects the Columbia Business School idea that busyness is a status symbol.
But FIRE is entirely based on extreme capital accumulation.
It is based on a specific ratio, not endless accumulation. It relies on the 4% rule. Mathematically, if you can save 25 times your annual living expenses, you can safely withdraw 4% a year, adjusted for inflation, indefinitely. The trick isn't earning $10 million. The trick is ruthlessly lowering your annual expenses.
Right, cutting back.
If you utilize geographic arbitrage, moving from San Francisco to a lower-cost area, or even to Portugal, you drastically lower that target number. People are utilizing coast FIRE, where they front-load their investments in their 20s, let compound interest take over, and then take low-stress part-time jobs just to cover groceries. They are reclaiming their time sovereignty in their 30s, while the executives you are defending are having heart attacks in their corner offices at 50.
That's exactly where the illusion breaks, though. We need to push back hard on the math here. You're painting this incredibly pristine picture of a minimalist utopia. But let's look at the reality of something like LeanFIRE, where people are trying to live on less than $40,000 a year just to avoid the corporate grind. That isn't financial freedom. That is shared poverty disguised as freedom. It is a mathematical tightrope walk without a safety net.
How so? The math of the 4% rule has been back-tested for decades.
It has been back-tested in ideal market conditions. What about sequence of returns risk? What happens if the S&P 500 drops 20% the exact year you decide to retire in your 30s? What happens when your appendix bursts and you are exposed to the brutal realities of the American healthcare system without corporate insurance?
You factor those risks into the withdrawal rate.
Furthermore, there is a massive, glaring irony in the FIRE movement that completely validates my original point. To achieve FIRE, to hit that 25 times multiplier in a single decade, what do you literally have to do?
Well, you have to save aggressively.
You have to participate in extreme, hyper-careerist savings rates of 50 to 75% of your income. You have to grind just as hard, if not harder, in the exact high-stress jobs we are debating during your prime biological years, and you have to do it while simultaneously depriving yourself of every minor luxury and comfort just to sprint to the finish line. The FIRE movement proves my premise. You have to sacrifice to the system up front to buy your way out of it.
But the psychology is entirely different. A person pursuing FIRE is working with a defined exit strategy. They are completely rejecting the lifestyle creep. They are saying, I will play this game for 10 years, and then I am permanently taking my life back.
But they're still playing the game.
Temporarily, the corporate hyper-careerist you are defending has no exit strategy. Their identity becomes completely intertwined with their output. If they stop working, they literally don't know who they are. They keep running the marathon long after they have crossed the finish line, simply because they don't know how to stop.
Well, tying one's identity to productive output is precisely what built the modern industrialized world. But I understand your hesitation regarding the absolute extremes. We can both agree that the human body has biological limits, and a 95-hour work week is biologically unsustainable over a lifetime.
Absolutely.
However, I maintain that in a hyper-competitive, precarity-driven global economy, maximizing wealth and leveraging your human capital is the absolute best pragmatic shield you can build. The resolved Killingsworth data proves it. Money buys well-being, it acts as a shock absorber, and it expands autonomy for the vast majority of people. Sacrificing your time up front is a harsh trade, but it is a necessary one to ensure that you are never at the mercy of a macroeconomic system that will not take care of you.
And I will readily acknowledge that financial precarity is incredibly real. You cannot meditate your way out of structural poverty, and you do need a baseline of capital to survive. But the behavioral data shows us that once those basic structural needs are met, time poverty becomes the actual defining crisis of the modern worker.
If you let it be.
Reclaiming control of your schedule, whether that is through a radical FIRE strategy, voluntary downshifting, or simply fiercely protecting 30 minutes a day for a passion without looking at a screen, is the only way to step off the hedonic treadmill. We have to stop treating our finite biological hours as infinite liquid assets that can just be traded on an open market.
And that brings us to the core friction we've been circling today. We aren't going to tie this up with a neat, perfect compromise, because the tension here is fundamental. Do you spend the prime years of your life accumulating the massive capital required to armor yourself against a ruthless, unpredictable financial system?
Or do you deliberately step off that treadmill, lower your financial armor, and reclaim the only true currency you can never, ever earn back once it is spent?
We leave that definitive choice to you. We encourage you to debate your own metrics of success, security, and well-being in the comments. There is vastly more to explore in the intersecting data of wealth, health, and human time. Ultimately, it comes down to a question of containment. You can spend your entire life building an impenetrable gilded bank vault to protect yourself from the world. But inside that vault, the sand in your biological hourglass is still falling at the exact same speed. Which one are you actually watching?